So, I know a lot of people have been wondering, are we going to see Luke and Ahsoka? Are we going to see his academy? And how much of Luke will be an heir to the Empire? Well, I think you might have an idea. What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to Cantina Talk. So, what if we see Luke and his Jedi Academy in the Ahsoka show? Recently, I have purchased and re-downloaded all of the older Star Wars games from my childhood that are from the early 2000s, such as Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, and much more. With that, in Jedi Academy, we see Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi and his academy on Yavin 4. During the beginning of the game, we get not only a tour of the academy, but the rest of the Praxium as well. We see some of the training grounds of the academy as well. I'm going to be using this as a base and the beginning to my theory to do with this academy. We first saw the construction of Luke's presumed academy in episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. We are also greeted by Ahsoka and Din Djarin in this episode as well. The academy in this episode is still in its very early stages and doesn't appear to be on Yavin 4, but it could be wrong. I do not believe that this is the same academy as the one in the sequel trilogy. This is due to there being drastic geographical changes in the Book of Boba Fett to the academy that we saw in The Last Jedi. So for this video, I'm just going to remove everything to do with Luke's academy in the sequel trilogy altogether. I, for one, am not really the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy, so I don't really want to include it if I don't have to. But to play devil's advocate, I will be including it with certain things throughout this theory. During the Book of Boba Fett, we see Luke teaching Grogu on his academy grounds, and later this is accompanied by Ahsoka showing up. Due to the Book of Boba Fett finale, we know that Grogu is no longer Luke's student and was actually Luke Skywalker's first student that he had at the new academy. With all of this, I believe that we are going to see Luke's academy at the end of Ahsoka, almost like a cliffhanger to lead into Heir to the Empire. When we see this academy, however, I believe its construction is going to be much more progressed since last time we had seen it. We would most likely see the academy training grounds and maybe even in the same configuration as in the Jedi Academy game. We would be seeing the multiple courses that are set up, each of them being different, so that the learner has to use each one of their abilities in different ways to get through the course. I know this might be a stretch, but I believe that Jalen from the Star Wars Outlaws trailer might actually be our canon version of Kyle Katarn. Let me explain. So this character in the Star Wars Outlaws trailer not only looks eerily similar to Kyle Katarn, also has the same mannerisms too. In Jedi Academy, the main character of the story is someone named Jaden. I think they might have taken Jaden as the main character from Academy and took Kyle Katarn and merged them into one, giving us Jalen. Outlaws is set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There isn't a for sure amount of time that is specified between the two movies, timeline-wise, but it is roughly 1 to 2 years depending on where you look and which sources you go through. I believe this character in Outlaws is going to find out that he is force sensitive and end up at the Praxium as we see Kyle Katarn at the beginning of Academy. During this time, Kyle Katarn is a master at the Academy and is currently taking on apprentices. I think that when we see this in Ahsoka, we will also see Jalen, aka Kyle Katarn, there training other Jedi. I think that Ahsoka will go to the planet, whether it's the Yavin 4 or some new planet to Luke's Academy, and we will see it more progressed with training grounds, other temples, and living quarters, making the Praxium almost complete. I think that Ahsoka is going to go through the temple, passing through all those places that I previously mentioned, giving us a little callback and hints to the game. I mean, we literally got a BD unit in the Book of Boba Fett, as well as everything with Luke in the show, as well as in Andor we saw Starkiller's helmet in Luthen's shop. So they aren't afraid to make callbacks to those games. I think Ahsoka will approach Luke, and he will be either training Leia or Jason Syndulla, and if you even wanted to tie it into the sequels, you could say a young Ben Solo. This would end presumably with Luke looking across to Ahsoka as a cut to black happens, thus leaving Ahsoka off with the cliffhanger, and thus forming the Heir to the Empire lineup of heroes and characters. I think that this is how the show is going to set up Heir to the Empire. This is unfortunately where the theory part of this video ends, but I'm going to go into the last part of the video, and it's a big one. This is how all of this will tie into the Heir to the Empire movie. So if you aren't subscribed to Jar Jar Jargon, you should. Jar Jar Jargon has already made a video on what his lineup would be for the OG Heir to the Empire characters, as well as the new replacements for the canon characters. If you haven't seen his video on this topic, click to the top right of your screen and watch this video before continuing this one. With that, in Jar Jar Jargon's video, is Ahsoka, Din, and Bo replacing the original trilogy. This makes sense due to the ages of the original trilogy characters and the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, but I'm going to be including the OG trilogy characters in my lineup. I believe Ahsoka, Din, and Bo are all going to be in this movie as well. However, I don't see how you can do Heir to the Empire without Luke, Han, and Leia. We already know that Alden Ehrenreich is returning as Han Solo, we just don't know what in. We have already seen Luke in Mando Season 2, as well as the Book of Boba Fett. I also think that we will see Leia presumably being played by Carrie Fisher's daughter, who would be taking the reins for that role. Carrie Fisher's daughter has already doubled for her in multiple times in the sequel trilogy, so it makes perfect sense, and I don't see why they wouldn't do it. Now, this is where things get a little nuts. I think that Ezra is going to be the replacement for Jorah Sabaoth of the story. Not so much as a clone, but as a mind-controlled Inquisitor due to Thrawn using the Mind Flayer on him to wipe his memory and give him the new persona of Merrick. If you haven't seen my previous video on how Thrawn will turn Ezra, click here in the top right of the screen to get a further explanation of that theory. Secondly, I believe that Baylan is going to die at the end of Ahsoka to the hands of Ahsoka Tano. I further elaborated this on my previous video as well. I also think that Shin is going to survive the show and is going to end up fleeing from the Red Forest and go to a desolate planet to continue her work as a mercenary / smuggler, so to speak. This is how I think she will tie into the Heir to the Empire movie, and I think that she's going to be our Mara Jade replacement. As for Talon Karrde, Mara Jade's boss, I am utterly unsure who would be replacing him, but that is where I believe we're going to pick up with Shin, working for him as a smuggler. I still think we will get Wedge Antilles in the movie, so I'm not going to be replacing him at all. I think along with the lineup of Luke, Leia, Han, Ezra, Shin, Talon, and Wedge, we are also going to be having Ahsoka, Sabine, Zeb, Jason Syndulla, Chopper, Hera, Captain Rex, Din, Bo, Boba, and Grogu. Some of these characters might have bigger parts, and some of them might have smaller parts, and some might even have insignificant parts. But I believe they all are going to be helping in some way, shape, or form. I think that Luke is going to be forming his version of the A-Team, so to speak, and this is going to be with the main group of people that he picks to be with them. I think that there are going to be multiple groups throughout this movie doing different things to help out with the full story, and those being the Ghost Crew and the Mandoverse crew, along with Luke's group. I'm unsure if Disney is going to greenlight a trilogy for Dave's Heir to the Empire movie. I think they might try and fit all three of the books into one movie, taking things from each one. Lastly, I would just like to say thank you for all the support on the last few videos. It truly means the world to me. I know I'm super excited for Ahsoka, as well as the Heir to the Empire movie, which is being directed by Dave Filoni. I cannot wait to see what is in store for us, and I know a lot of you can't either. I would love to hear from you guys your thoughts on this, and if you agree with this theory at all, or even my lineup in any way. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And lastly, may the Force be with you all.